Are you and your spouse struggling to hear each other? Are your conversations filled with things like, "I already told you that"? Or maybe you're wondering why your spouse doesn't care enough about you or even doesn't love you enough to really hear what you're saying. If any of those things sound true in your relationship, fear not. Help is on the way. The key to solving those things and having a relationship with healthy communication is something called empathetic listening skills. And today we're going to dive deep into that subject, and I'm going to give you some tips and tools that I've learned in 12 years of marriage, including many years of doing things the wrong way, of how to improve the communication in your marriage. Ready to get going? Let's do it. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell of Middle Class Dad over at newmiddleclassdad.com. And these are my unscripted videos that I film to and from my daily commute to work on a variety of subjects. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to get going into empathetic listening skills. So let's dive in. My wife and I have struggled a lot in our communication over our 12 years of marriage. Thankfully, we're at a good place now. But in the past, we've been compared to Mr. Spock and Captain Kirk of Star Trek. In that scenario, I'm definitely Spock, and my wife is Captain Kirk, but occasionally we've flip-flopped as well. I tend to be hyper-focused on efficiency, and I'm thinking about the million things on my to-do list, and what's next, and if my wife starts talking about an issue or a problem or a feeling she's having, I immediately start thinking about how to fix it. In short, while my intentions are good, I'm not being present to her and her issues. I'm not really listening to her. My mind is going a mile a minute thinking about what I'm going to do next instead of being focused and 100% present on her. And that's where the communication breakdown starts. And you know what happens when my wife doesn't feel heard? When she feels that I'm not present to the conversation? She tends to repeat it. She tends to go deeper. She tends to get more emotional. This is making the whole conversation take longer than it really needs to. And me being hyper-focused on efficiency, I start to get frustrated because I feel like we're ready to move on and my wife doesn't feel that way at all. And then the cycle just repeats and gets worse. If any of this sounds familiar, empathetic listening skills can definitely help. My wife, on the other hand, being the Pisces that she is, tends to pepper her conversations with very flowery language. She may get very emotional about something that to me doesn't seem like it should be emotional. She may go off on a few different tangents, and she may even start a conversation in her head and finish it out loud. You can bet to somebody like me with an analytical mind, it can be very confusing. See, I like to know the who, what, when, where, and why. And my wife likes to point out that the sky isn't actually blue, but it's just pigments that get refracted through the light and through the clouds and from the atmosphere and etc., etc., etc. Things that my mind don't actually really care about. So how do we come together? How does she get her needs met while I get my needs met? Well, empathetic listening skills are the key. So what is empathetic listening? Really, it's just the practice of being mindful. The terms mindful and mindfulness are quite popular these days, but essentially, they just mean being 100% focused on what you're doing. In this case, listening. You're 100% focused on what your spouse or your partner is saying. You're looking at them in the eyes. You're listening to what they're saying. You're not just waiting your turn to talk, and you're not thinking about things unrelated to this. You're not interjecting. You're letting them speak. You're really making them feel heard. You are 100% focused on them. When we focus on one thing at a time instead of the illusion that multitasking somehow makes us more efficient, we're more productive, we're happier, and the people around us are happier too because they really feel connected to us. One quick caveat here. Just because you're listening to your spouse or your partner and you're 100% focused on what they're saying doesn't mean you have to agree with them. But you're letting them feel heard. You're understanding what they're saying. And then, when the time is appropriate, you let them know what you're saying, and they practice empathetic listening skills with you. Empathetic listening simply means you're connected, you're present, and you're giving them your undivided attention. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything they say. Now let's talk about the word empathy for a minute. What does that mean? It's different from sympathy. If I'm sympathetic to you, that means I feel sorry for you. If I have empathy for you, it means I've put myself in your shoes so that I can feel to the best of my ability exactly what you're seeing and feeling. And that is a key difference. I don't want to feel sorry for anyone. I don't want to take pity on my spouse. But I do want to practice putting myself in her shoes so that I can really understand what she's feeling. When I understand completely what she's feeling, I stand a much better chance of being able to communicate in a way that's effective and makes her feel heard. So what are the best ways to practice empathetic listening skills with your spouse, especially if you're in the heat of an argument or a disagreement? Well, there's a few key ground rules. One, put the phone down. Many of us live 24/7 with our phones these days, and honestly, in my opinion, that's a huge distraction and a huge part of today's societal problems. But that's for a different video. So put the phone down. You can't be 100% focused on what your spouse is saying if you're distracted by technology. Look them in the eyes. If the argument isn't too heated, hold hands or somehow physically connect in a non-threatening way. Slow your breathing. Practice deep breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Really connect with them. Really listen to them. If it's a heated argument, let them say their piece. Don't interject. Don't interrupt, and just let them speak. Let them get it off their chest. When we are filled with negative emotions, we have to clear it out of our system. And the best way to do that is by talking about it. If you keep interrupting or interjecting or offering commentary, or if you're obviously distracted, your spouse is not going to feel heard. They're going to keep repeating it and escalating it, and that's going to make things worse. If you can master empathetic listening skills, you'll improve the quality of your relationship. You'll improve trust. You'll foster good, healthy communication. You'll increase intimacy. And you'll overall see a huge improvement in your relationship and reduce the tension in it. I hope you found this video helpful. I would love it if you subscribed to my channel, which you can do right here. And I've also got several other videos that you might find helpful as well. These are simple, unscripted videos that I shoot to and from on my daily commute to work. Thanks for being here. And don't forget to check out the blog posts linked in the show notes.